there was a guy in my unit, he had been there maybe a year, 6 months. His name was Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson was, he was a city councilman. And
we have a theme here with Florida city councilmen.
North Carolina?
They can be bought.
No, this was North Carolina.
Well,
North
Southern.
It was South Carolina. South Carolina.
Not much of a difference.
So he's in South Carolina. And he also owned Atlantic. It was Atlantic Bullion and Coin.
Okay.
Which was he did commodities trading, so whatever. He traded silver, right?
Mm-hmm.
The silver trader, whatever. For I can't think of the name of it. Whatever it is called. Whatever, you buy silver at a discount, and when it fluctuates, you whatever.
Yeah.
However that works. So he had run basically. He'd done that about 10 years, and then after 10 years, he'd built up such great clientele. He decided to start stealing from them. Mm-hmm. So about 15 years, he starts stealing from them. So he stole. Some of the newspaper articles say like 100 million. It was like $100 million, but he said it was like 57 million. So because that was the actual loss. Like they have this way they push it up. So point is $57 million, and he's old con man, and most of the people that he stole from were pension funds and banks, pension funds and churches. So he was not a liked person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Anyway, but I liked him. I liked Ron. So, he was an old con man, and he was very gruff and reminded me of my dad. So I get back and he's like, "Hey, I heard you fucking got 7 years off, right?" I'm like, "Right." And keep in mind, he's cooperating in his case. So he's only been locked up like a year.
Right.
So he's cooperating. He's like, I'm like, "Yep." And I'm like, "Yep." And he's like, he's like, I said, "So what are people saying?" He's like, "Oh, you're a rat, snitch, piece of." But I won't say anything to your face. And I was like, he's like, I think he said something. He's like, "Yeah, all the undercover rats here calling you a rat." He said, but yeah. And so we kind of laughed, and we were walking around the compound. And then one day he says, I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to reduce my sentence." And I said, "Well, they'll reduce it." And he's like, nah, I said, "I don't think so." He said, they think I've hidden Ponzi scheme money. Like, I was like, "Yeah, but didn't you give him like $6 million?" Like, he dug up $6 million in like silver and cash and gave it to him. He's like, "Yeah, but they think they don't, he's like, they think I hid some." And I'm like, "Well, you didn't, so don't worry about it." So we keep walking around. And like, this goes on for months. He mentions it 1 week, 2 weeks later, he mentions it another month. He mentions it. So one day we're walking around and he says, "Yeah." He says, "They're never going to give me anything." And I went, "Why do you keep saying that, bro?" I said, they would have to prove that you had hidden money. I said, if they can't prove that, they have to reduce your sentence as soon as these guys that you've cooperated against or get sentenced. Mm-hmm. And Ron had a 19-and-a-half-year sentence, and he'd been down a year.
Right.
And he's 66 years old. Mm-hmm. He's dying in prison. Mm-hmm. So we're walking around, and I went, "Yeah, I don't know why you keep mentioning that." And he goes, "Can I trust you?" And I looked at him and I went, "Probably not." And he does what he did. He goes, he laughed. He goes, "I did put some money away." And I went, "Really?" I said, "Well, they would have to find the money, bro. Like, they're not going to." And he goes, No, you don't understand. He said, "I gave my wife, like, I don't know," he said something like 150,000. And my brother's got maybe 30 grand. Not a lot. And I went, "Oh, okay." And he said, "But my wife has recently found out that I had been having an affair for 4 or 5 years. And she's furious. And my fear is she's going to turn in the money just to make sure I get nothing." Mm-hmm. And his wife was insane, right? From the stories he had told. And I was like, "Is she that spiteful?" And he was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you understand she'll get in trouble because she knows she's not supposed to have this money. Like, they'll charge her." He goes, "I don't think she cares." He said, "That's how upset she is." And I was like, so I go back to my unit. I lay in bed and I think, is that enough to get me a reduction?
I knew that's what was coming. Holy.
Here's what's funny.
How much money was stashed? Did he tell you?
Told me 180.
180 million?
No, 1,000.
Oh.
It's nothing. And that's why I didn't say anything. I laid in bed and I thought, they didn't want to give me anything when I deserved it.
Right.
Like, they're not going to give me anything for $1.80.
Right.
They're going to be like, that's nothing. I said, and they're not going to re-indict him because he's going to die in prison anyway. They're not going to indict his wife. And even if I tell them and they go to the wife and say it, she's going to deny it. Nobody's going to admit that. They go to the brother. He's going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know that they can even have a conversation with those people. Hey, we went on the FBI or the Secret Service. It was the Secret Service. Secret Service is requesting you come speak with them. No. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't have to talk to you. So I don't have to lie to you. And there's nothing you can do to prove I have the money. Like the whole thing, I was like, there's nothing. I mean, it's done.
Right.
I'm done. I laid in bed. I was a month later. A month later, I had written a memoir, remember? And I hadn't published it. I wanted to add some stuff that was said at my sentencing. So I called my lawyer and I said, hey, you said you were going to send me the sentencing. The resentencing. And she's like, oh, Matt, I'm so sorry. I forgot. And she was okay, hold on, I'm writing a note right now. She goes, so what's going on? I said, nothing. And I'm like, she goes, anything happening in there? I go, like what? And she goes, I don't know. Anything happening you want to talk about? Nothing? Something, anything? And I went, and I thought, that's weird. Like she never wanted to talk to me. And I went, okay, something did happen. And she goes, what's that? And I said, okay. And I tell her, here's what this guy said. Boom, boom, boom. And as I'm talking, she looks him up. She goes, oh, wow, this is a bad guy. This guy stole like $100 million from churches. And I was like, and I'm thinking, well, it's probably not all churches. But, and I'm like, okay, yeah. And she goes, let me make some phone calls. Let me see something. I said, okay. And she hangs up. And I didn't tell her how much. I said, it's not a lot. It's some, but it's not a lot. And I know, you know where it is. Yes. Okay. So one day, don't look at me like that. Don't judge me. So one day I get, a CO comes, it's controlled moves, right? So CO comes and me and goes, Cox. I go, yeah, what's up? He goes, you got to go to, SIS in the feds is like the internal security.
Yeah.
He goes, you got to go to SIS at the next move. And I go, oh, okay. I didn't think anything of it. You know why? Because I was writing guys stories and I would order a Freedom of Information Act on them. Right. So I'm just thinking SIS every once in a while I would catch a package, call me in like, does so-and-so know you ordered his shit? I'm like, yeah, I'm writing a story. And they go, all right, here. Wow. So I go there, I open the door and the guy goes, Cox, come here. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? You sit down. This guy, asshole. Sit down. They called a bulldog. And I go, hold on. He starts dialing number. I'm like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And I basically forgot about it. So he picks it up. He goes, here, you got to talk to this guy. I go, who is it? He goes, talk to him. And I'm like, all right. I go, hi, this is Matt Cox. He's like, hey, this is Agent, whatever his name was, Scott Griffin or something Griffin with the Secret Service. And I was like, oh. He goes, I'm in charge of Ron Wilson's case. He said, I understand you know where he's hidden Ponzi scheme money. I go, whoa. I want something in writing. Yeah. I want. And he's like, well, I don't know he's no, I promise you'll get some. I said, you don't have the authority to promise me anything. I need something from the U.S. attorney saying that if I get money. I said, it's not millions. So don't think I know where millions is. It's not millions. I said, but it's not 10 grand either. And he goes, okay, I'll get back with you. So I put him on my email list. So he starts emailing me. He sends me a copy of an email he had between him and the U.S. attorney saying, if Mr. Cox helps recover a substantial amount of hidden Ponzi scheme funds, or his information leads to an indictment of another person, we will consider it substantial assistance to reduce his sentence, and that's the best you're going to get. So I go, so he's like, okay, so what's going on? He says, okay. I go, okay, here's what's happening. So I tell him, here's the wife has this, the brother has this. That's it, bro. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, listen, could you maybe find out about this from Wilson? Okay.
This is great.
So I go, okay. I said, okay. So he's there. They have me trying to get information out of him. This guy knows this guy doesn't know this, and I'm, so that's not easy to do. Like you can't, it's like, ask him this. Like, what the f am I going to ask him that? You trying to get me stabbed? Yeah. You got me asking questions in a prison. So this goes on for 6 months. And then one day.
So were you just waiting for your opportunity to ask him like when it made
Yeah,
sense?
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you broach the subject of, hey, whatever happened with such and such? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. How did you, I don't understand that. Like, why would someone do that? And they'd be like, oh, well, I was running these such and such. Then maybe he mentions,
The money.
he was helping me.
Right.
Oh, did he know about the, oh yeah, he know, great. Yeah. Here's what he said. So, and so anyway, what ends up happening is one day they indict Wilson. One day I'm walking across the compound and they had told me, hey, they had told me.
Had you been going back and checking in with him?
Oh yeah.
After every time you
there's
talked?
100 emails.
Wow.
Over the course of 3 or 4 months. Wow. So what ends up happening is, and this is probably more than I've ever told, more than I've ever really, gotten into this. So what ends up happening is one day Wilson tells me, oh my God, I just got the phone with my attorney. They called my wife in. She denied that she had, they called her in and they said, we know you have Ponzi scheme money. And she said, I don't have nothing. And I remember thinking my heart sank, bro. And I thought, and he goes, then the next day my brother came in and he walked in with his attorney and he gave him $150,000 in cash. I went, 150? I thought you said it was like 20 or 30. He was like, I know, I didn't think I could trust you. So yeah, I was 150. He said, and then my wife shows up a few hours later or the next morning with $350,000 in cash and silver pieces and gold.
Wow.
It's $500,000. And I was like, bro, you said she had like $150. He's like, well, I guess I didn't know. Well, he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, holy. So I'm walking around. And so a couple days later, they tell me this, the Secret Service says, listen, this guy's about to get some bad news. Yeah.
Before we get into this, why would he be getting, he's already doing 20 years. Why is he getting indicted? Just because he lied about it?
Because he lied. It's for obstruction of justice.
Right.
So one day I see him and he's like, Cox. And I'm like thinking, like, I don't need this guy. And he's an old man, but he could still walk up and just smash me.
Yeah. Did you ever keep a knife on you?
No, it wasn't that. It was a low. It wasn't that kind of prison.
All right.
Even in the medium, I didn't. It wasn't that place.
Okay. But these are high stakes, though.
Well, yeah.
I guess the man's completely desperate. I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't occur to me.
Okay.
I wouldn't think something like. Not the guys didn't.
Right.
But so, what happens is he called. I walk up. I'm like, hey, what's up? And how's it going? And he's like, they indicted me. They indicted my wife and my brother and me. He said, I'm going to be on the placard the next few days. I was like, holy bro. And I'm going to tell you something. So there's three kinds. I'll do this real quick. There's three kinds of levels of cooperation, right? One level is I tell the cops, hey, by the way, the guy next to me is running a meth lab. And they go check it out and they bust him, right? You get very little for that.
Right.
15 people, doesn't matter. It was really nothing on you. So you get a little bit, maybe you'll get 20% off your sentence for that, maybe 30. Then there's I'm going to cooperate extensively. I'm going to wear a wire. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to interact. I'm going to put myself in real danger,
right?
Which is where I was. And you probably get 30 or 40% off for that. And then you have the top tier one is you give them information, you cooperate like I had been doing. It's intrusive, and you testify at a trial.
Right.
That's the top one.
Right. And you might walk completely.
Yeah, you might get 50.
Sammy the Bull.
Think about it. 50, that's 50, 60%. I've already done a ton of time at this point. I would leave. And so Wilson says to me, he looks at me and he goes, he said, what do you think I should do? I said, you should go to trial. Because
Matt Cox, you slick.
They're going to have to call me.
Oh my.
Ron, don't you puss out. Don't you puss out and take a plea. You're a gangster, Ron. You be a gangster.
Yeah.
So anyway, they put him on the pack out. He got.
Oh my God.
I didn't want you to.
This guy's a piece of shit. So it's like, I normally don't promote this level of cooperation and snitching, but this is a bad dude.
Listen. And if I'm a piece of shit too. Like, even I know how vicious that is. Damn. Right? Like, he's dying in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wasn't dying before.
Yeah, he's dying.
I'm ready to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
And I'd love to say, well, he's already going to die and everything, but it was vicious, but I don't give a. He didn't give up. He's cooperating against his people.
Right.
I don't give a.
Right.
You know, I don't have any qualms about it. I want to go home. I want to see my mom.
Yeah.